going on, guys? Zane here with Everything Vive. I want to welcome you back for another episode. Today we have a special guest with us. His name is Chalit Noonchoo, and he is with Mixed Realms. And they are the studio that brought us all Sairento VR. And if you haven't tried it out yet, it's so much fun. It's very unique in terms of its locomotion. I want you to think raw data meets super hot in terms of the bullet time, and then think about like ninja locomotion, being able to jump around and slash your enemies from above with like bullet time. It's really cool, and it's one of the games right now, one of a kind in the sense that the locomotion is very, very unique, and it just adds so much to the gameplay. So we chat with Chalit, who is the CTO, and we really get into it, especially on the technical side. Chalit was talking about some of the challenges that they faced and how that locomotion came about, and just the history of the game and where Mixed Realms is looking to go in the future, especially with the game coming out, at least that the announcement was made for the game being fully completed by August of this year. Also, just wanted to share very quickly, because this came actually after we had stopped recording, but Chalit mentioned to us that the team had just brought on Alex Shedlock, who was behind the storyline for Solace Project, as they are trying to build out their own campaign. So really exciting stuff happening right now. The game is obviously still in early access, but it's one of those games that I think you would not go wrong with grabbing right now, just because there's so much that you can do, and it's just a lot of fun, and it combines the best elements of a lot of different top games. And so, yeah, with that being said, let's just jump straight into the conversation. Chalit, how you doing, man?
Hey, doing good. How about you guys?
Doing good. I'm here with Ronnie. Ronnie, how are you?
I'm doing well as well.
Great, man. So, Chalit, we are so excited to have you here on the show today. You are the CTO for Sairento VR, which is just, I mean, Ronnie and I have had such a blast playing it. And yeah, I mean, we'd love to get into it with you, learn a little bit more about how the game came about. And I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, maybe your role, and talk a little bit more about Mixed Realms, like the studio.
Yeah, thanks. I'm quite excited to do this interview as well. So I'm Chalit. I am the CTO of Mixed Realms. So we are a pretty small company in Singapore, and we are interested in doing VR games. We set up this company to specifically focus on VR game development. So I mean, previously we formed Swagsoft, which is a mobile apps and games company. But we're thinking of moving away from the mobile marketplace, as it's getting a little, I would say, crowded. So we want to try something new, and we're looking at new mediums to focus on, and VR came up as one of them. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I mean, first off, I think you're the first developer or development team that we've spoken to in Singapore. So that's really cool just to see, the little VR pockets that are developing all around the world. How is the scene over there in Singapore? Is there a strong VR development community?
Yeah, this is one of the questions that I can't really answer. It's more of it's more of Eldrick's, I would say, Eldrick's specialty.
Okay, no worries.
Sorry.
No. You're fine. Hopefully we can get Aldrich on as well sometime. And what is Aldrich's role? I'm sorry.
Yeah, his role is actually he does the business side of things. So in terms of like talking to publishers, and getting deals for us. So that's basically what he does. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're the CTO. So let's talk technical stuff then. You ready, Ronnie?
Sure. Well, I guess one of the first things, I mean, obviously there are a lot of unique challenges in virtual reality, and I feel like Sairento kind of tends to tackle a lot of those challenges head on with I mean, one of the most standout features is really the movement system that Sairento uses. For players that haven't gotten a chance to really play the early access title yet, Sairento allows you to basically, be a ninja from the movies, so to speak, and be able to jump in air, do double jumps, and also slow down time and use both swords and guns to take out enemies. And so obviously with all of those types of movements at your disposal, I think I could imagine it being quite a challenge in order to allow players to really, take on that type of movement in a video game. How was it developing Sairento, and how have you gone about implementing all of those different types of movements?
Sure. Being a VR game, right? Locomotion is a big part of how the experience plays out. So, interesting thing to note is that Sairento is known for its like bullet dive, which is like a slow-mo jump, right? Mm-hmm. And that's actually quite a late addition to the game. So, in the iterations of the game, we only had teleport as a movement mechanic. So it was pretty similar to most of the games, the VR games that you see right now in terms of locomotion. Being a late so like 1 week before the release, right? I was just playing around with all the different movement mechanics, and I tried moving the character by using a jump trajectory instead of teleporting the character, and somehow this turned out really well. It kind of gave you like that kind of Max Payne slow-mo feel. And although it kind of looks weird to be standing on your 2 feet and jumping through the air, when you're playing it in the VR headset, right, it feels totally different. Mm-hmm. It kind of hooks your brain into thinking that you're actually jumping through the air. So it was quite an interesting addition, last-minute addition, so to speak.
Wow, that's really interesting, because like I said, that was one of the first things when I personally played the game. Immediately, it just felt like such a cool thing to be able to. I mean, teleportation is always one of those things that I guess you have the leg up on the AI for. But in this game in particular, being able to jump over their heads and kind of come down at them with a sword, or be able to kind of Max Payne with 2 pistols and kind of you really feel like you're getting an advantage from that type of that vantage point. So I thought that's actually really interesting. And I guess to follow up on that, I know, as we mentioned, the game is early access now. I know the team is working to add new features to the title. How does your development cycle change when you are able to kind of jump upon no pun intended, a new feature like this without really, expecting it? Because it sounds like this is such a late addition, but I'm sure you've gotten such great feedback on it. I wonder did that change the way that you started viewing what your future plans would be with the game, or?
No, from the start, we always wanted to deliver that kind of, epic ninja experience. So in terms of the jump being a late addition, it didn't really sort of delay our schedule, so to speak. Because the core of the movement mechanics was already there. We're already planning for you to be able to move around this huge level, give you a sense of being unrestricted and being able to take on your enemies from any angle. So in a sense, it didn't really impact our development.
Cool. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I mean, like Ronnie was saying, he's the one who tried the game first and then had told me about it. And I mean, I haven't really seen another game that has implemented this type of movement and mechanic. And I guess I'm just curious what, if any, challenges there were in, I guess, delivering that, or developing this type of movement. And so the big thing that's coming to mind right now is motion sickness. And if that was ever, if that was ever a factor in, certain decisions and how you went about that. And the thing is, for me, I'm not going to say I prefer teleport, but I'm not going to deny that teleportation is much easier on the stomach. But the thing is, after trying this game out, I feel like I have a pretty strong VR stomach now, and I didn't have any issues, and I found that actually quite surprising, being able to jump through the air. So I'm just curious if there was anything that you guys focused on in the back end to make sure stuff like that didn't, come up.
Motion sickness is actually quite a big factor, not just in our game, but in a lot of VR games in general. When we added in the jump, we were quite concerned that players would just try it for the first 5 minutes, and then they'll put it down and say, this game is definitely not for me. It makes me sick, makes me want to puke. So to address this issue, we actually added in an option to switch between just teleporting and having the option to jump around. So we were thinking that being able to give these options to players would help ease them into the mechanics. And I think a lot of VR games out there, they are also moving towards giving players more options. VR is a very subjective experience, and every person has a different threshold for motion sickness. So
yeah, that's true.
We think that it's important to give options for that.
Speaking about options and player choice, one of the cool things about Sairento is being able to switch from hand to hand, sword combat to gunplay, and one of the things I noticed that's interesting about Sairento. Some other games do it too, but I noticed it right away because of the slow motion. How you guys model projectiles. All of the gunfires are unique bullets that are then hitting the enemies. And I was just kind of wondering whether there were particular challenges in VR when trying to model objects that way, and specifically with projectiles, and then also whether there was any kind of challenges for implementing hand-to-hand combat as well as the projectiles, and kind of balancing the two.
Okay, for our because you see all these projectiles in the game, right? It was actually kind of inspired by Super Hot, if you played that game.
Okay, yeah, I'm well aware.
Yeah. So there's this whole slow-mo thing going on in Super Hot. Mm-hmm. So we kind of like the fact that you can see the bullet trails like flying, whizzing by you, and being able to dodge them. So we think that the trails they improve the experience somewhat.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I'm trying to think of.
So you're asking about the physics as well, right?
Yeah, no,
okay.
Yeah, in combination, and I haven't actually played Super Hot in VR. I don't know if the projectile system and like the way that stuff works, if it is more challenging in VR or not. But I just one of the things that I noticed was just kind of how the hitboxes were. It's very different when you attack an enemy with a sword, especially in VR, versus like far away projectile type stuff. And I was just wondering how, like you said, with the physics system and the hit detection and all of that, kind of how you balance the difference between those two types of those weapon inputs.
Okay. Sorry, can you break up that question for me?
Oh, yeah. I guess. However you want to tackle it, because it's possible that I'm going across this. I'm looking at this problem from a way that doesn't really make sense. But like part of what I was kind of trying to get at was I guess how the physics system works, and then also if there's any differences in implementation or challenges in implementing the hand-to-hand weapons versus the guns and the projectile-based weapons using that system.
Sure. Doing guns in VR is a lot easier than doing hand-to-hand weapons. Because when we're talking about hand-to-hand weapons, we have to think about things like how fast the user is swinging the sword. So sometimes you tend to get players who just like swing the sword out in front of them in like small little arcs. You get what I mean?
Sure, like just kind of waving your hand around.
Yeah, exactly. Just waving it in front of you. So being able to account for that is is the challenge itself. In our first early access build, we didn't really account for that. So most of the players commented that the sword felt really overpowered because you could just like poke them and you would do the full amount of damage. So in the subsequent builds, we tried to address this by implementing a minimum velocity that you have to swing your sword. But this was good in that it addressed the issue, but it was also bad in the sense that there were cases where the player didn't swing the sword fast enough or hard enough, and it wouldn't register a hit. So in right now, we're about to push out the next update, and in this coming update, the damage of the sword is tied to how fast you're swinging it instead of matching a minimum velocity.
Oh, so that's really cool.
Hopefully, it will make the experience much better.
Very interesting.
No, I like that. I mean, I was just gonna say, I mean, the way that the physics works, and especially with the bullet trails, it does add that level of I don't want to say immersion because I overuse that word, but it really enhances the experience. And I think the way that it did for me was being able to, it's almost like it helps you aim because you can see where you're shooting. And especially in bullet time, that allows you to quickly make adjustments. Whereas in other games, you may not be able to see that as clearly. And so I don't know, I'm not trying to say that it makes it easier, but I feel like it actually makes the game more enjoyable in that sense.
Yeah, because we're trying to straddle the line between realistic and fun. So if you wanted to make it like super realistic, you wouldn't be able to see the bullet trail, and that kind of makes aiming a little harder. Have you played Arizona Sunshine, for instance?
Yeah, we have. Yes, that one's definitely more difficult. I get what you're saying, and that's an interesting concept that you bring up too, in terms of being able to balance the fun element versus the realism. I mean, obviously, what makes VR so special is the fact that it brings that realism to life in a certain sense, but being able to still make it an enjoyable experience and something that people can still easily grasp onto is a great point. And I think having those bullet trails is just the perfect example of doing just that.
Yeah, because I mean we're trying to do a fast-paced game, right? But at the same time, we want to retain that epic ninja feeling. So it's something that we have to consider when we put in the bullet trails.
So quick question on that, actually, because it's something that, I mean, clearly you guys are on the right track as far as the action hero, like fast-paced ninja kind of, idea. Did you guys ever consider doing anything slower paced or kind of stealthy? Because some of the mechanics feel like they could also, like, it's interesting. It works so well in kind of the action movie sense of slow-mo, kind of slicing guys down and raining down a barrage of bullets. But then you could also see the mechanics working where you gain a vantage point, the enemies can't see you, you kind of sneak up and kind of get. I'm just curious if you guys had ever, like, what your initial inspiration was, and if you ever considered going any kind of different directions when you were, coming up with your ideas.
Yeah, a lot of players have been asking us about that, like whether there will be a kind of stealth mechanic in the game. And the interesting thing is that in the early days of Sairento, it was actually designed as more of a stealth game and less of an action game. So over the development process, it actually evolved into what it is right now. So in the early iterations, you would be a ninja and you be placed in this environment where you have to sneak around and try and take out your enemies silently, and you'll be able to sort of like, it's kind of like playing a thief game but in VR.
Gotcha. Okay, but then it developed into this more like frenetic and fast-paced action environment.
Yeah, but if you're asking if we plan to add in stealth mechanics, it's definitely something in the pipeline.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, but it involves some changes to the AI, which we are still working on.
Yeah, in terms of the AI, actually, what I think I read somewhere that you guys were working on a number of things, moving from from early access to the final product. What are some of the challenges with AI, and what are some of the what are some of the things that you hope to accomplish with building the AI further?
I think one of the challenges of AI is that it's not just AI by itself, but it's something that's tied to a lot of components of the game. For instance, how the level is designed, how the level is put together, things like the difficulty mechanics. So it's something that we have to balance out, and something that is tied to all these different components. So it's not an easy change to make. So what I'm saying is that it's something that will take some time to work through. And we're also thinking of adding in more. I mean, we are planning to add in more enemies. So it's something that will develop along the way.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that seems like a normal, I guess, progression for the game as it goes along. I'm curious, and I actually want to reference the announcement that was made on the PR Newswire about Sairento, and that's the fact that you guys are working on, or at least announced that there'll be a full-length game, and this will be developed into a full-length game. And earlier in the interview, you mentioned that you guys were working on certain updates. So I'm just curious, because I know the timeline is to try and get it out by late summer or August, and so I'm just curious, like what does this look like for you guys, I guess, for the next 6 months? Will you be pushing out regular updates, or will there be, just kind of like a massive final update once the game gets to the level that you guys are hoping to get it to?
Okay. Right now, we are following kind of like, a big patch followed by subsequent small patches. So in the big patches, we will include all the major breaking changes. And then we follow up with fixes for that. So maybe a month between the big patches, and then days or weeks between the smaller patches. So that's the kind of schedule we have to follow.
Okay, cool. And I guess just out of curiosity, if this is something that's even applicable, has there been any player or user feedback that you guys have received that was something like almost like a no-brainer, where it's just like, oh my gosh, how come we didn't think about this? Or this is such a great idea, let's implement this in. I'm just curious, because obviously there's such a big community around this game already. So has the feedback guided or provided any direction to where the full game is eventually going to end up?
Yeah, a lot of comments that we've received have been quite on the nose in terms of how we plan to, in terms of where we plan to take this game. So I think you guys will be pleasantly surprised to play the final game. Yeah.
Okay, I like it. I'm excited.
Yeah,
keep it a surprise, right?
I'm very excited.
Well, so if we can transition away from Sairento for a little bit, I'm just curious about VR development in general, and maybe the thing is, like, with the developers that we talked to, you guys have such a unique experience. I'm just curious, what is your one wish for VR? That could be hardware, that could be software. And we usually frame this question in the context of, if you were the CEO of one of these top companies like HTC or Oculus, where would you be focusing your time, energy, and resources? What do you think is the next big thing for VR, and where everyone should be looking, or at least what's one wish for you?
So I mean, right now I'm just hoping for a growth in the VR ecosystem. As mentioned before, we used to be a mobile app and games company before we became a VR games company. So when we talk about VR, we're not just looking at it from a games perspective, but we are also looking at it from other industries, such as like medical industry, entertainment, or even education. So we feel that VR has like a really strong potential in a lot of all these different industries. But at the same time, it's kind of a chicken and egg problem, where if you don't have the content producers, there's no reason to push out more hardware. So it's kind of a concerted effort between the two of them.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense, and that's actually brings up a good point that Ronnie and I have been discussing. Just because like you said, VR it's going to revolutionize quite a few industries, and I mean, I like the parallel that you gave in terms of mobile apps, just because there's mobile apps that deal with health, that deal with scheduling and calendars. There's obviously games, but it's gonna be really fascinating to see how VR maybe disrupts some of these other areas, and ultimately helps optimize certain other things. And I mean, one of the big things that we've seen already is just how it's been used on the medical side. But is that something that you and your team would be focused on in terms of branching out into other areas, or is gaming the focus? I mean, obviously the game is going to be the focus for the next 6 to 8 months or so with Sairento, but moving forward, is that something that you personally, or you professionally with the rest of the team, would be interested in branching out into?
Okay. I can only speak on behalf of Mixed Realms, since we are the sort of like the gaming division of the company. So we'll definitely be focusing on Sairento VR for the next few months, and beyond that, more VR games. But on Swagsoft, which is the app side, we're definitely looking to expand expand in the industry in the area.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, no, that makes sense. I mean, we definitely want some more VR games, so please don't stop.
Yeah, and I was just curious along those same lines. Is it quite a bit different to develop a game for the VR systems that are out right now as compared to mobile? 'Cause earlier you spoke about kind of the oversaturation of the mobile market to some extent, and I would imagine this particularly when it comes to games. On one hand, you have the huge user base of that mobile platforms bring to the table, but on the other hand, then you have to worry about the oversaturation and finding a way to stand out from all those other apps out there. Whereas I feel like VR, in some sense, is kind of the opposite problem, where the user base is quite small, but at least right now it's less saturated and there's less products out there to kind of differentiate yourself from. I'm just curious, how has it been, developing a game, for the Steam platform, and what's it been like? What are some of the positive aspects of releasing a game early access?
Okay. For a mobile title, things are a lot simpler. In the sense that the scope of the game can be a lot smaller, and but at the same time, it's also more challenging in the sense that you have to make the game compatible with all the different devices out there. But going into Steam and VR, we find that there's a lot more freedom, in the sense that anyone who is VR ready is they pretty much have for example, a decent graphics card, a decent rig. So we have some space to play around with, making with the mechanics and making the game good. So in terms of the experience that we want to deliver, VR is just something that's entirely new and different and immersive. So it's different in that sense. Yeah.
Okay, very, very cool.
I know we're talking about VR, and I pivoted away from the game, but I actually want to get back to it real quick, just because one of the other things that I remembered from the announcement on the PR Newswire was the multiplayer aspect that you guys were hoping to introduce. I just as a fan of the game, is there any timetable that you can give us, or is that still something that is in the works?
Yeah, co-op was something that we wanted to add in from the very beginning. But as you know, doing a VR game right now is kind of risky for sort of indie developers. I mean, we consider ourselves pretty indie. So for us, it's a pleasant surprise that with all the help from the community, we're able to include this in our schedule. So in terms of the timeline, we are looking at maybe May, sometime around May, something playable.
Oh, okay. Well, we won't hold you to that, of course, but I mean,
but that's really exciting because I can only imagine how much fun it'll be to to play with your friends and all of the, like you were saying, all of the different options with locomotion and combat, being able to mess around in co-op and have players that use different approaches to situations will be a lot of fun to watch.
Sure. I played co-op on games like Raw Data and Arizona Sunshine, and the experience was, I would say, magical.
No, I totally agree. One of my earliest co-op moments in Raw Data, I didn't really know 100% what I was doing, and it was so cool to be able to kind of interact with someone in real time and really have someone kind of show me the ropes in a game where I felt like someone was literally in the game with me, kind of showing me how to do things as we went along. It was kind of I feel like in general VR experiences with co-op and multiplayer experiences are just in some ways so magical.
And you don't even need good graphics to experience this. For example, like in Climbing or Rec Room. You just need a good mechanic to be able to experience that magic.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's actually really incredible how much of a social experience VR has become now with a lot of these multiplayer or co-op games. I mean, just like what Ronnie was talking about, it's you feel like the person's there right next to you, and it just adds this total new dimension to certain games, being able to strategize and play off of one another using the strengths and weaknesses and things like that. So Sairento. We've mentioned games like Raw Data and Arizona Sunshine already, but Sairento I feel like is even crazier, fast paced. I love the frenetic chaos of it, and being able to do that with at least one other person. Maybe I don't know how many would be in the co-op in the future, but just being able to do that with other people, I think would add a whole new element that would add so much, I guess, replayability. Not that the game isn't replayable now, it definitely is, but there's just this element of being able to experience it again and again with other and new people.
Sure, and talking about the future of Sairento VR, in terms of the co-op, we wanted to implement something like a kind of an end game. So it's kind of like a feature where you choose to begin a new campaign, and the game generates like a series of maps. So these maps will be randomly generated, as I said, and they also have different properties. For instance, like maybe the enemies have more health, or you can't use guns in this level, or you have to be totally silent in this level. So there are different goals for each map, and if you're able to complete this entire series of maps, you sort of get a big reward at the end. Yeah. So we think that this would.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, we think that this would be great for co-op play.
No, that sounds very, very fun. So that's I'm super, and that's part of what you guys are working on right now.
Yes.
Very cool, man. Chalit, I want to be respectful of your time. We only have, I guess, maybe one or two more questions for you, if that's okay.
Sure.
Well, so the first one is, well, I guess we know when the date for Sairento VR, at least the full game, is hoping to come out in August. But I don't know if you are able to speak to the future of Mixed Realms and maybe other games that you guys have in the works. I know this is kind of putting the horse before the cart, but just curious now that the game has been out for a little bit and that you've been able to see some of the other games that have been successful, or if there are any other ideas. Have you started working on new ideas, or is I guess I'm just curious what the future of the studio looks like in terms of branching out into different types of games, different types of experiences.
Right now, we are like 100% focused on completing Sairento VR, and we will continue to do so until we actually release the final product. But in terms of what we have beyond that, we have some ambitious plans, but I think we're not ready to reveal it just yet.
Okay, no, that's fair. I didn't want you to spill anything that you weren't supposed to, but I figured it might just be worth asking. Just since there's so much coming out now, and there's it seems like a lot of these indie experiences are really redefining how people interact in and inside of VR. So I was just curious if there was anything that had fascinated the team enough to maybe explore in a future title. But that's totally fair. we'll leave that one there.
We recognize that VR is a very social experience, and we definitely want to focus more on that social aspect in the future.
Very cool.
But in a context, yeah.
Yeah, no, and we're super excited. Everything that you said about co-op and Sairento, I think anyone that plays the game and sees kind of the gameplay systems that are in motion in that game would recognize how much potential there is to then add the human element of interact. Because, I mean, like you were saying before, there's so many challenges with AI and really, and obviously you guys are going to be working to improve the AI and add in new enemies and all that sort of thing. But to some extent, there's no real substitution for human to human interaction. And I can't wait to see what that looks like in Sairento.
Sure. I mean, if you play all the great PC games out there, like Left 4 Dead comes to mind. I mean, the experience is just totally different playing alone and playing with a couple of friends.
Yep.
And I think that would translate really well into VR.
No, I totally agree. And some of the things that you mentioned just about how, I mean, I know you say that your future plans are ambitious, but I think really the types of things that you're talking about implementing into Sairento itself are very ambitious. They're really, I can't think of any co-op game that's out right now that has so much in terms of talking about procedurally generated levels and different tiers of challenges and kind of almost an end game that you can work on with your friend. I mean, all of those things sound. I can't wait, and I think I'm speaking for myself and Zane that we look forward to playing together and kind of seeing what you guys come up with.
Sure. I mean, regarding this point, I think that there's a lot of VR games out there, but a lot of them are kind of like short one-off experiences. Mm-hmm. And so it's something that we wanted to change with Sairento. That's why we implemented the loot system, which takes a lot of inspiration from games like Diablo and Borderlands. Mm-hmm. We want the players to be able to keep coming back and be able to. We're actually thinking of being able to trade items with your friends in the future. So there's this element where you want to be able to play co-op with your friends and share the good loot.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, I mean, like Ronnie said, we're just really excited to see where this game goes. It's only been out for a couple of months, but in those couple of months, it's already revolutionized a lot of the type of gameplays that we really enjoy. So, best of luck on where it's going. And I guess the last question is really just. A shameless plug opportunity for you and, for the people who really enjoy the game, if you want to give them any way to get in touch with you, to provide feedback or things like that, what's the best way that people can connect with you or, with Mixed Realms in the studio?
Sure. I mean, you can just drop us an email at info@mixedrealms.com, or you can, visit our Steam discussion board. We have quite a big community going on there, and we reply to your posts like within a day. So if you got something to say, or any feedback or comments, just leave it there.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, yeah, that was a quick turnaround, and I'm glad even with the time differences we were able to get on the call with you guys. Just because, like I said, it's a game that Ronnie and I have really enjoyed, and I know that there are many other people out there who feel the same way. So, Chalit, thank you so much. We really do appreciate the time.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure.